What's going on, guys? So today I want to talk a little bit about this spyware backdoor similar to Pegasus that has been targeting journalists in Europe. In particular, Ciro Pellegrino of Fanpage, and we're going to talk a little bit about why he may be targeted and also the particular attack on him. So apparently it looks like he has been very critical of Giorgia Meloni's right-wing government, and this may be a big factor in maybe why he was targeted, though the government did deny it initially. What's interesting is the company Paragon has actually cut ties with the Italian government after this report came out. Not sure if that means anything, but we can see from Citizen Lab, who actually did the analysis on this, how it actually works. So we can see Citizen Lab, if you ever have an interest in these kinds of things, these attacks, these backdoors, especially on smartphones, they do great analysis and really break it down. So it looks like they've been targeting users with WhatsApp and also iMessage, and in particular this journalist here actually was targeted with a zero-click vulnerability in iMessage. Now, if you want to be safer, of course, you're going to want to disable preview loading. You're going to want to disable any extra features in your messengers, no matter what it is, whether you're talking about Signal or whether you're talking about something else. If you want to be safer, you should disable extra features, because every single feature and every plugin that you enable can be potentially exploited in one way or another. And again, I am using my internal microphone just based on my current situation, but I'll be back to my regular microphone here in a couple days. So just wanted to kind of cover this because he runs this page called Fanpage. Apparently they work with human rights defenders and also had some relation to a priest that worked with the Pope, and apparently there were multiple different journalists and parties that were targeted. Now, one thing they noticed was the phone would contact this particular server. You know, if you run a simple whois, you can see that it is infrastructure, server infrastructure that is residing in Croatia. So you can do that if you're ever curious about an IP address range or a suspicious domain. I do recommend running a simple whois on it, and you can find out what it is contacting. So if you ever get one of those messages, another common way that they attempt to target individuals is by sending a fake shipping tracking link. So you may get a text message or even another message, maybe even in WhatsApp or something else, which will say your package cannot be delivered. This is a very common technique for phishing, and people will tend to click on that because nearly everyone gets some form of delivery mail, and so in that way it's a generic kind of targeting where you can actually get someone to click on something even if you don't know the specifics about that person or their interests or their personal connections. Generally, this is an all-around way to target someone is by using these fake shipping notifications. So watch out for those. Of course, I'm not saying that's how he was targeted, but we do know it was a zero-day, zero-click vulnerability that was on the iPhone, iMessage. Now, it was patched. So really the number one thing is always make sure to keep your phone updated. Can't emphasize that enough. And if you need to reboot it after those updates, of course, because sometimes an upgrade will need a rebooting to take full effect. So make sure you're doing that regularly, checking for updates, checking for security patches on your phone. If you have the opportunity, flash yourself or buy one of the custom hardened Androids that you can get on a Google Pixel or another phone, and take full advantage of profiles, take full advantage of all the features and the hardening that comes on a lot of these different open source Androids. So we can see that Paragon, which was a company that was started actually in Israel and then later was bought by a company in Florida, and it was actually started, or at least it was originally backed by Ehud Barak, who was a former, I believe it was a prime minister of Israel, but now it's apparently under at least part U.S. ownership in Florida. at least in some way. Now, they did reach out to Paragon, and the backdoor itself is called Graphite, so it is something that runs very similar in the way that Pegasus runs. However, we do know it also operates covertly in the memory, so it leaves a minimal artifact on the disk, similar to how Tails only operates in the memory. So it's capable of creating these system-level impersonations. For example, it can register fake iMessages and things like that to make it look like it is a genuine artifact, where in fact it is something else that will trick the user. And in that way, it can harvest everything and get sensitive information. It's another thing that we have seen is that journalists can be blackmailed. Blackmailing is something I think we're only going to see more of, especially in this age of AI, where people are just more efficient at collecting information and data on people. So I think we're just going to be seeing a lot more of this potentially with blackmail attacks, things like that, that are going to keep people in line. Now, one of the reasons that's possible, now I'm not making a claim here, but I will say that one thing that this journalist who ran fanpage.it, which is an outlet that focuses on human rights and is critical of right-wing governance, so in particular was known for his critical reports against Meloni's administration. So if you're not familiar, Meloni runs Italy at this point in time, and apparently they went undercover. They infiltrated this political party and videotaped things. And it may not have been Ciro himself, but apparently he's the head of this company, and it looks like they targeted all the journalists that they could find, at least in this particular instance. So we can see a list of different names that and how they were targeted here. Now, Ciro Pellegrino, the main person I've been talking about, he was targeted with the iMessage zero-click. And what a zero-click is it means that it doesn't require interaction from the user. So it could be something that preloads something or exploits some kind of, in this particular instance, I believe it was an iMessage zero-click. So, and there's been other instances in the past where Pegasus would actually do a phone call, and that phone call would allow them to exploit something in the phone to actually allow them to take over the phone, and the person didn't even have to answer the phone in that instance. In this particular instance, it looks like iMessage zero-click was found to be open, and these 0 days, that means that this is not something that is known. It's not something that is patched. So these companies focus on 0-day vulnerabilities, things that are not yet patched, that people are not yet aware of. And so in that way, they can target people that otherwise maybe had everything locked down with their security. And so in that way, everyone becomes vulnerable in some respect. Now, if you're using something like a hardened graphene phone or something, you're going to be much better off and much safer than if you were using another alternative, such as a store-bought Android or something like that. In particular, a lot of journalists use iPhone, so that's a big target on iPhone users, and journalists and those who work in government are likely to be targeted with iPhone-related 0-day vulnerabilities. And some of the other people that were targeted here were targeted with WhatsApp. So it seems that iMessage and WhatsApp are some of the #1 targets for this particular company that does this. Now, they provide this mercenary spyware software, and this spyware software is intended to be used only to target criminals, those who are already under some kind of probable cause and warrant. So it's not supposed to be used against journalists who are just reporting. And apparently Ciro Pellegrino was also active on social media, being critical of Giorgia Meloni's government. As mentioned, I'm not making a claim that she had anything to do with it, but I'm just stating that this is something that was known about this particular person. He was critical on social media, so somebody may be targeted for their opinions. They may be targeted for their politics. They could be targeted for a number of reasons. Possibly they are connected to someone who has a political opinion that is outside of the current party in power. So it could be even family members. So if they can't get directly to the journalist they're looking at, they might target the journalist's family and then use that as a way to sort of jump to the target themselves. So they may actually get their family exploited in the process of trying to access sensitive information on these journalists. The question is, what was the real intent here? What were they trying to gather? Were they just trying to find out what these journalists knew, or were they truly investigating something of criminal or national security origin? Because this is, in fact, software that is only supposed to be used by governments, which really narrows down the potential attackers here. So it's only supposed to be used for national security or criminal investigations. Now, we know that national security has taken on a much broader definition, especially since things like 9/11, which has really opened the gauntlet for all kinds of targeting, all kinds of justification to exploit people, including journalists. I remember reading one country actually was blackmailing journalists and activists just based on their own opinions and their activism. So, this kind of thing can be used for all different types of intents and purposes, not just criminal, not just national security interests, but protecting the interests of important or powerful VIP people. And as they have reported on the Amnesty International, they talk about how Pellegrino runs a website called Fanpage, as I had mentioned. So a list of different Italian journalists that were affiliated with this fanpage.it were all targeted with Paragon's Graphite software, including journalist Francesco Salato, Mediterranean Saving Humans founder, which is based on immigration. So this organization here, they were targeting, it looks like, those who were working with migration and working with people who are getting asylum. So it looks like there is a lot of left-wing targeting in this particular instance. Refugees in Libya organization also targeted. So we do know that the Italian Parliamentary Committee has reported a confirmation that Graphite was being used, and Graphite is the Paragon backdoor spyware. It was used by both Italy's foreign and domestic intelligence services. Now, they announced that they canceled that contract, and this is back in 2025, February. They actually canceled the contract. Some of these articles come to us from mid-June, so they're only a couple weeks ago. So this is a recent story I wanted to bring up to everyone, but it's just another reminder to really make sure you're getting all of your updates in your phone, all of your security patches. Make sure not to enable features that you don't need or use, especially things that preload things, and sometimes even just preloading content in your messages. Things like link previews, simple things like that can be exploited in various ways, including revealing your IP address. A lot of these messengers, some of them focus on privacy, but then at the same time, they may have your device make a direct connection that will give away your actual network IP address, so that way you can be targeted in other ways. And of course, there's all kinds of information available on the public online, so there's a variety of ways they can find ways to target journalists, activists, and other users that they see as a threat to their particular agenda. I do think that it was likely related to some of Fanpage's criticism and possibly even the infiltrating of political parties and undercover recordings, which obviously is going to piss off a political party, especially one that's in power, but we don't really know. Maybe there's something more to it. Maybe there truly was a national security need. Maybe there was some kind of crime. I'm not going to claim to know all the information here, but if you're interested in reading more about the exploitation itself, you can check out citizenlab.ca, and I'll leave a link to this article here so you can check it out for yourself. And let me know what you think in the comments, guys. I'll be doing another video on the Pwnagachi coming up, and I'm also going to be experimenting with another similar feature for a Pi Zero. So we'll be checking that out coming up, and I also ordered some hardware that I am looking forward to sharing with you guys soon. So make sure to like and share the video, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments, and always appreciate reading your comments. And I'll be back later with another article and video on how to protect your security and privacy.